I can't engage in a positive conversation about net zero and stuff like that because of what you've said, your attitude, your denial of the facts, the human rights abuses. It's just outstanding to me. Astounding, I mean.
One interview, one explosive debate, and by the end of it, Dale Vince had heard enough and simply walked out after a fiery clash with Telegraph journalist Camilla Tominey over Gaza. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from, like this video, and subscribe so you don't miss our next report. Let's get straight into it.
If it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it is a duck. If it is a terrorist group and they carry out terrorist acts on October the 7th, which we both agree on.
They're defined as a terrorist group by UK law.
Yes.
And they have committed acts of terror. I think that's a reasonably established fact. But at the same time, they're trying to defend their country. Now, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, is it genocide that's been committed in Palestine?
Well, now that's a really good point. Now, let's be honest about this. And I know you are somebody who absolutely thinks Israel has committed and is committing a genocide against the Palestinians. That's not been upheld in any court of law. There's been no legally binding decision to say that it is a genocide. So let's be very clear about this. The ICJ has said that it is plausible that the rights of Palestinians in Gaza under the Genocide Convention are at risk of irreparable harm, and it's ordered Israel to take steps. But there has been no finding in law that Israel is committing genocide. So how do you know better than the ICJ?
I don't, but I read that they had made a preliminary finding of genocide.
No, they haven't. That's a misinterpretation of what the ICJ have found. They have merely found, and let me state it again, that they're at risk of causing irreparable harm to Palestinians, and Israel have been ordered to take steps. But this whole Israel is genocidal isn't correct. It's not been found to be the case in international law.
So is somebody not murdered until a court founds them to have been murdered?
Well, that's a really interesting point, because murder requires intent to kill and an actus reus, the actual act of killing. If you're going to give a defense to murder, which in this case is self-defense, then yeah, you might not be found guilty of murder.
Self-defense.
Yes.
100,000 civilians bombed. 6 Hiroshimas dropped on the tiny state of Palestine by the Israeli army, a local superpower. I mean, look at the kettling of millions of people, the starvation, the deprivation. I mean, and the statements of the Israeli government, they're saying they want them out. They won't allow food and aid in. They blame that on Hamas as well. But you just look at the statements of the right-wing Israeli government. They are extreme. We wouldn't tolerate this from another country in this world.
Sure. So okay, let's use a different example. Were the British committing a genocide against the Germans when they bombed Dresden?
That was an act of
self-defense.
No, it wasn't. Firebombs in a wooden city. That was a deliberate act of terror.
But in war, when does war become genocide?
Well, war has rules.
Yes. So under the current rules, the ICJ hasn't ruled that Israel is genocidal.
Well,
therefore, why are you bandying around this, as some would say,
blood
libel?
No, I think some in the right-wing Israeli government call it that, but it's a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, there's so much blood been spilt in Palestine by the Israelis. There is no question that it's deliberate targeting of civilians, of aid workers, of the press, of children. There are more child amputees in Palestine than anywhere else in the world. It's an incredibly barbaric thing that the Israeli military...
It is a two-way street, right?
It's barely a two-way street.
Well, hang on a minute.
Stack the numbers up.
Hang on a minute, because this is the other thing. This is where I personally think your argument falls down. After Bondi Beach, you said on X, let me just say this, and we can debate it. You said on X, nothing to do with Israel committing genocide in Palestine then. You can't have it both ways. You can't suggest that this is retaliation for what Israel is doing and then not suggest that Israel is retaliating against what Hamas did on October the 7th.
Israel clearly are.
It's a two-way street.
No, Israel clearly are.
So if Israel are, then Hamas are.
No, but look, I don't know where this comes from. I wasn't here to talk about this.
We're going to get onto environment, I promise. But you're very vocal on these issues.
But give me a chance to speak then.
Okay, go for it.
Because you're not, actually. You've got a prepared script and facts and you're bombarding me and let me speak.
Okay.
So the Israelis have been clear that they've acted in response to the incursion on October the 7th, but it's an overreaction by anybody's measure. It's incredible. 100,000 deaths versus, was it 1,000? I don't know. You know, it's almost 100 to 1. Now, is that a proportionate reaction? Is the bombing of Gaza to the extent that it looks like the face of the moon with 95% of all buildings gone? Is that a proportionate reaction? Is the starvation of civilians millions of civilians in Palestine, the denial of aid, is that proportionate? That's a war crime, actually.
But okay,
It's
my
an occupied territory.
counter-argument.
Bear with, it's an occupied territory. Israel, as the occupier, has the obligation under international law to look after those people.
Sure.
And it isn't doing that.
Okay. My counter-argument would be they haven't been found guilty of any war crimes. They haven't officially been found responsible for a genocide, despite the rhetoric that you and others use. That actually Hamas have been using people as human shields now for years and years and years. The fact that there are mass casualties is because it's actually a proportionately tiny plot of land compared to the rest of the Middle East. That if actually Hamas weren't building tunnels under actual civilian populations, then the bombings wouldn't have that effect. And that indeed, we know humanitarian aid has gone in because we've seen the humanitarian aid being delivered. We've also seen footage out of Gaza that doesn't suggest that everybody is being starved to death. It literally doesn't suggest that.
Have you seen the pictures?
I've seen all sorts of pictures. I've seen staged footage as well.
There's barely a building left standing. Have you seen the reports of snipers targeting children in their schools? Have you seen those?
I've seen all of the reports, but just in response
So how's that self-defense?
So human shield, use of Gazan people as human shields by Hamas?
Do they? That's what the Israelis say. But do they?
Well, I think actually journalists have found tunnels,
The Israelis have been
they?
accused of doing that, going into buildings, holding Palestinian people in front of them. Have you seen those reports?
I've seen loads and loads of reports,
let me
but
ask
some
you
of the reports are unverified, aren't they? Because we can't actually, this is where you and I will definitely agree. What we actually need is for impartial journalists, and I mean impartial, to go in and try and find out what on earth is actually happening, as opposed to contested statistics from the Israeli government, contested statistics from Palestinian health authorities that turn out to be Hamas. We haven't got an objective view of what's going on.
I think we have enough facts in front of us. We have videos, we have pictures, and so on. I think it's ridiculous, actually, to say that this is a two-sided affair and we don't know what to believe. You know, we can believe our eyes, and what's happening is incredible. But let me ask you this question. Were the Germans found guilty of genocide?
Were the Germans found guilty of genocide back during the Nuremberg trials?
No.
Was that word used?
You tell me when they
by
were
the Hague.
You tell me when they were found guilty. I'm saying when they were gassing Jews in concentration camps, were they found guilty of genocide?
Well, not at the time because it didn't emerge until later.
No. So should we have acted to stop the gassing of Jews in the concentration camps, or should we have said, well, actually, there's no evidence that they're actually committing genocide. We have to wait for a court to say.
Well, I think that we shouldn't be suggesting that the ICJ has found them guilty of genocide. If they haven't...
That's not an answer.
No, it is an answer.
No, you're saying... No, you're pivoting back to the ICJ. I'm asking you a question directly about the legal finding of genocide. Do we have to wait for it?
I think you do you need a legal finding of war crime. For anyone to be found guilty of anything criminal, they actually have to be found guilty of it.
I think you missed my point.
No, I think you're missing mine. No. I think you can't just accuse people of things without actually...
So the Germans didn't commit
well, we know they do now because
genocide.
We know they do now because it was found to have been the case at the Nuremberg trials. It was found to be the case thanks to the prisoner who escaped from Auschwitz, putting a huge dossier together which helped to inform the British and American legal case against the Nazis.
You mean we didn't know about it before Nuremberg?
Well, we didn't know about the extent of the gas chambers in the camps until they were liberated, no, unfortunately.
We knew they were happening.
Some people at the time knew they were happening. Churchill and others did, but we didn't try it.
Was it genocide at that point when Churchill knew it?
I don't know because I don't know what he knew at the time, Dale Vince. I'm just saying it's not genocide until it's found to be genocide.
Exactly, and that's your argument.
Okay,
Therefore Churchill couldn't have known it was genocide.
Okay, so if you get a feeling someone's guilty of a crime,
mass murder.
If you get a feeling someone's guilty of a crime, you're just going to call them a criminal without any legal finding.
No, you're being silly. We're not talking about one person. We're talking about an army. We're talking about a Middle Eastern superpower that is mass murdering Palestinian civilians, aid workers, and journalists. The people you'd like to be in there to tell us the truth. They're targets if they go in there.
If Hamas mass murder, are they genocidal maniacs?
Dear. No, not until a court finds them guilty, according to you.
Okay, so you agree with me. Right, we've found a period of agreement. Let's move on to net zero. Because
I'm also a human being and I'm affected by what's happening in Gaza.
I am a human being.
And I'm affected by what you've said about it.
I am affected because I'm a human being. I also have a great many Jewish friends and colleagues who feel that they have been discriminated against in this country and beyond because of people holding very pro-Palestinian views. Now, I appreciate that there isn't necessarily a correlation between people who support Benjamin Netanyahu and just being Jewish, and that sometimes support for Israel and being Jewish is conflated. But I'm merely representing a different proposition here to the one that you adopt. I'm allowed to do that. It's a
There
free
you are.
country.
And I'm allowed to be inflamed by what you've
Yes,
said.
I'm inflamed by what you've said.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's properly crazy.
Okay, well, maybe. On green issues, let me just read out an email from a chap who contacted us, who is a regular listener to the Daily Tea, and I'd like you to see whether you think you agree with this. Fuel poverty is being exacerbated and our economy is being decimated at the cost of many trillions of pounds as we outsource industry to countries which are building a record number of coal-fired power stations. That could be a standard Telegraph view, that although our readers want to do their best by the environment, they want to recycle, they believe that climate change exists, they're worried about the execution of this. They're worried that actually some of these measures are making the poor poorer and indeed colder. Is that a fair argument to mount?
Well, you asked me first if I agreed with his statement, and I don't.
Yeah.
The facts are wrong.
Okay.
And then it got a bit long-winded and complicated. But do you know what? I'm going to leave because I'm not having this discussion. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm just not.
You're joking.
No.
Why?
Because I'm just offended.
Why are you offended?
I can't engage in a positive conversation about net zero and stuff like that because of what you've said, your attitude, your denial of the facts, the human rights abuses. It's just outstanding to me. Astounding, I mean. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No disrespect, but I'm leaving.
Okay, no disrespect. Then that is...
So, there you have it. What started as a political interview ended with Dale Vince deciding he'd had enough and walking away from the discussion altogether. What did you make of the exchange? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.